everyone, Lou here. One anime comparison a lot of people have recommended is one on Cells at Work versus Cells at Work Code Black. This came especially after the Code Black anime came out, and since I watched it a while ago, let's compare Cells at Work and Cells at Work Code Black. Major spoilers for both anime series. Even if that's kinda hard to say, the series is science-based, so spoilers for science, I guess? I also can't show footage as due to my previous video discussing Cells at Work, there is major copyright issues with the series. I don't mean a flag, but I mean blocking the video worldwide, and since I want people to see the video, I'll have to show gameplay to avoid that kind of copyright and keep clips to an extreme minimum. Anyway, back to the video. Cells at Work is a manga created by Shimizu Akane on January 26, 2015 to some pretty well-received reviews in Japan and seen as a very educational manga. I can't say it was super popular in Japan though, because I don't live in Japan and I usually follow merchandising trends to see if an anime is popular. I mean, obviously something is ridiculously popular if it causes an overwhelming amount of merch for it, and ends up with bootleg merch like Dragon Ball Z. However, even if Cells at Work was not that popular in Japan, it was very well loved in America due to its great educational value towards younger anime fans. The manga would at least gain enough attention to warrant an anime adaptation by David Production on July 8, 2018. David Production is best known for the JoJo's anime adaptations and Fire Force. It was thanks to the anime adaptation that would reach fans and cause for a little small burst in America of people discussing Cells at Work. Specifically, many people agreed that the coolest part about the series is its extremely creative approach to explaining how the cells in your body function on a daily basis, as well as how much research was put into the series. You can find some really cool videos of doctors and other medical professionals looking at this anime and being genuinely surprised at how well researched it is and how excellent it handles explaining complicated medical terms to a younger audience or people who struggle with learning more complicated terms. Hell, some even suggested that Cells at Work should be used as some sort of learning assignment in science class. Personally, I've always theorized that Shimizu Akane is a doctor or some kind of medical student solely because of the detailed research, but I could be wrong and they're just a really cool nerd. The sheer popularity of Cells at Work would cause for multiple spin-offs, many of which I'm not going to discuss today because, well, a lot of them are honestly kind of boring and don't focus on the science of anything at all. One spin-off that is interesting that we are going to talk about today is Cells at Work Code Black or Cells at Work Black. The story was written by Harada Shimegitsu, who is primarily an ecchi author, which, trust me, will explain a lot of weird choices in this story later down the line. With the art done by Hatsuyoshiya Issei, who has not done anything else but work for this manga. It would be published on June 7th, 2018 to some pretty well-received fanfare, especially when other spin-offs for Cells at Work are just really boring. I actually did a review for this a few years ago, and at the time, I thought Cells at Work Code Black wouldn't get an adaptation due to its darker nature that could potentially confuse audiences with the original Cells at Work Black, but I was wrong, so look who's the clown now. Cells at Work Code Black did alright, though I haven't heard a thing about a second season for it, and the manga ended, which was an okay-ish ending if you ask me. With all this backstory out of the way for both anime, let's finally dive into both series for this anime and see how they compare with each other in this versus video. Okay, so, the basic gist of both series is explaining how the cells in your body combat different bacteria and diseases, from basic seasonal allergies, the common cold, and injuries. The major difference for these two is the tone. Cells at Work is portraying the body of a very healthy person whose biggest issue was a massive head injury, while Cells at Work Code Black portrays an extremely unhealthy person. By that I mean the person is unhealthy at their weight, hygiene, smokes too much, drinks too much, engages in unprotected sex, and is much older. I mean, we don't know the age of the person in the original Cells at Work, but my guess was always someone in their 20s from my perspective. I say person because we don't know the gender of this person. In Cells at Work Code Black, this is a man in what I assume is his late 50s, though apparently our main cast gets transported to another body that's even worse during a blood transfusion, so I can only guess that it's someone by the same age, judging by the body being described about the same. One subject I feel like Code Black wants to talk about but can't because of how complicated it is the subject of death. Throughout the manga and anime, there are countless diseases and health issues that could have easily spiraled down into the subject of death and how the body dies. Even in that final chapter, you can feel that it really wants to tackle that process of death, but it doesn't. Not that it's a bad thing, that is an incredibly complicated subject matter, and honestly, I can see why they didn't touch that subject matter. It'd be interesting, for sure, solely to see a human personification of when a human body dies and the process that follows. But I think that could easily go into a very bad route very quickly. Overall, Black is a very bleak story in the first place. Code Black dives into a lot of themes of desperately holding on to something in really bad times, because sometimes that's all we have to do to keep ourselves sane. Not a bad theme, and honestly kind of realistic to someone who isn't taking care of themselves. No matter how badly you are on the inside, your cells are always fighting to keep you healthy. And I think for a story like this, I think it could open the eyes of a lot of people who don't take care of themselves. Most of all, self-care is the real message of this story. While Cells at Work is extremely optimistic, this is a very healthy body. Like I said, the worst is a massive head injury. Yes, there is cancer, but that's a little more complicated. It was a single cell that was killed fairly quickly in both arcs, while Cells at Work Code Black discusses actual cancer in the form of multiple cells forming a mass and attacking the body. Also showing the effects of radiation, which I have to say I was pretty surprised because it's extremely rare for media in general to talk about treatments of cancer besides chemotherapy. So yes, aside from those two major incidents, Cells at Work is an extremely optimistic and happy anime. Though does it create a similar effect of appreciating your body in the case? Yeah, but it's a happier feeling. Code Black is like, wow, I really gotta take care of myself. While Cells at Work is like, wow, my body works really hard. I'm so proud of the little guys in my body. You get what I mean? Anyway, overall, I think I'm gonna give this to Cells at Work Code Black. While it was nice to learn about how my body fights my shitty seasonal allergies and how a scab forms, I feel like I learned more with Code Black because it was more serious health issues I think everyone would want to avoid. Just like in story, similar artistic concept of personifying the cells in your body, but the difference is in style. Cells at Work goes for a sort of roundish and very cute appearance because this is a very happy anime that's almost meant for children if it wasn't for the blood and gore when killing bacteria. While Code Black has a gritty and often disgusting art style. By disgusting, I mean gross as in the way it portrays the body. We're talking grime-filled hallways with fat seeping through the veins, pus personified, which was super gross, and overall just very dirty backgrounds, while the designs of the cells themselves is gritty and sharp. And remember when I said the author used to write ecchi manga? Yeah, that's kind of obvious when you look at White Blood Cell's female design. I'm not against fan service, obviously, when Arataki Ito is walking fan service for anybody who likes guys. But this feels a little ridiculous given the tone. Like, come on guys, we're literally witnessing what a heart attack looks like. We do not need to see boobs McGee over here. Other than the ridiculous and honestly unnecessary fan service, the art style fits the tone really well. Dark lines and harsh shading shows a real grit to the characters and the situation they're in. Instead of the rounded features of Cells at Work, we have sharper designs that evoke a more serious atmosphere. The coloring for the anime also matches the tone, which I can't really say for the manga coloring because that's supposed to give a monochromatic look in the first place, so the anime fits the tone better than the manga in the coloring department. The red on the red blood cells is a lot more muted, either because of the darker tone or because this is a very sickly body, so maybe the red blood cells are supposed to look off? Who knows? Whereas Cells at Work in the anime has an extremely colorful art style, the shading is very soft and natural. The anime in particular is better at emulating this soft style because the manga isn't colored that often, at least. From my experience on Google anyway, it's not colored often besides the covers because it's been a while since I paid attention to Cells at Work at my local bookstore that sells manga. Overall, both have art styles that fit the tone of their series. It's not Kentaro Miura or Sakamoto Shinichi here, but they're pleasing art styles to the eye and catch your eye when you're scrolling down a list of anime or you're looking at a manga section. If you ask me which style I personally prefer, I'm gonna have to be honest and say I prefer the original Cells at Work. Solely because the fan service in Code Black makes my eyes roll a little, but that's just me, of course. Obviously, both series are technically meant to be educational and less of an overarching story. Sure, there are some stories like Red Blood Cell never knows where the fuck she's going because she's actually a very rare defected red blood cell, as pointed out by doctors and medical students when discussing the show, but it's overall extremely educational from my perspective. Cells at Work Black is extremely educational too, specifically in the darker and more disgusting parts of the human body when you lack taking care of yourself, and when you're older. But there is a little more of a story to it. There's a running sort of story in the anime and manga about Red Blood Cell coming to terms with the fact that he's just a blood cell in a dying body, and how useless he feels in a hopeless situation. But he has to learn to hold on to that hope in a bleak scenario. I can see where that is more of an adult situation, of course. I think a lot of us right now feel pretty powerless in a bleak situation, but I think Code Black tries to hammer that in sometimes. All we can do is just cling to the smallest amount of hope possible, and hey, maybe it'll inspire hope in others. There's also the trauma involved in the blood cells dying through infections and damages, like Red Blood Cell losing countless coworkers and friends through issues involved with the body. Like when a blood clot forms, it's a horrifying personification because it's literally a bunch of dead coworkers fused together into this thick ball. Not to mention how disgusting the personification of pus is, which is white blood cells dead and leaking, which is blah, gross. This is a case where I can't really complain about it having a story over Cells at Work. I suppose it makes the stakes higher, but again, Cells at Work perfectly manages to make a charming character but realistically portrays the cells in the body. I suppose this is just down to preference, really. Overall, both series have a high educational value, but I'm gonna go with Cells at Work for balancing the concept of story and educational subjects at the same time. This choice is solely down to preference though, because honestly I see them both as pretty equal here. Cells at Work and its spin-off are both fantastic. Is it Full Metal Alchemist, Attack on Titan, and Cowboy Bebop levels of genius and well-crafted work? No, mostly because it's more of a teaching tool than anything else, but for something that is a teaching tool, I really enjoy both of them. Though I have to admit that I do prefer the cheerful nature of Cells at Work, but I preferred learning about things like what too much smoking and dehydration does to the body, like in Code Black. I guess this is an anime versus where I'm kind of torn between the two, but at the same time, there's a part of me that really wants to lean into Cells at Work. That'll be it for this video though. This was a super fun one to write about. I've noticed that I'm really enjoying these anime versus videos on subjects that are super close together. Of course, if you want a solo review of Cells at Work Code Black, down below will be my super outdated video on it, but I guess it gets the job done. Let me know what you guys think though. Which version of this story do you prefer? As always, if you want to see another anime versus, let me know down below. Hey guys, thanks for watching! If you liked the video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you're new. If any of you would like to help support my channel in any possible way, my Ko-fi page is down below in the description, along with all of my social media. For any subscribers, new or old, who'd like to help with video ideas, or maybe just want to talk about anime or something, I have a fan server linked down below. See you next time!